Welcome to the webinar regarding safe drone shows and practical steps. Today we will walk you through some of the key aspects of safety when executing shows, and we will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, but also very much welcome to ask any questions in the Q&A section throughout the webinar, and we'll all answer them throughout the webinar, as well as some of the more technical or complicated ones we'll discuss at the end of the webinar itself. So today you'll be hosted by my colleague Germano. He's our engineer as well as now a trainer at Drone Show Technologies, and by me, Arthurs. I'm the lead engineer, and yeah, we'll be leading the webinar today for you guys.
Hey there, glad to be here.
What are the topics of today? So we'll talk about safety first of all and foremost. So since the holiday season is coming, lots of shows probably will be executed in the next couple of weeks. Therefore, we find that safety has always been a top priority in our company, and we would like to share some of our insights and best practices with you guys today. So first of all, we start with organizational safety. That will involve anything from planning to properly executing and everything that you can do both on paper as well as from an organizational standpoint. We're all going to also talk about the technical condition of your fleet, how to service and maintain drones in the safest way possible. We're going to discuss briefly the importance of a trained and knowledgeable team, because what makes the drones fly, not that just the very team. We'll talk about environmental conditions that can certainly influence and sometimes even make or break a show, about precise execution, and of course, the use of the right tools to help and actually execute the show itself. So I'm going to hand the lead to my colleague Germano, who's going to walk you through the first part of the webinar.
Thank you, Arturs. So we're going to begin by discussing organizational aspects, which I like to introduce as the human factor around drone shows and the environmental factor around drone shows that we have to bear in mind. It's not all about having the best drones and the most beautiful animation. There is lots of operation that goes into it. You must manage a team. You must manage several factors. That's not only the equipment itself. So let's begin. We're going to run through a general scenario of all the steps in from getting a, let's say, contract to make a drone show for a client, all the way down to actually executing it. We're going to discuss what we need to bear in mind about wind, other environmental requirements, a very hot topic, which is GNSS jamming and also spoofing, or in more general terms, GNSS interference, which is something many users have had many questions about. So we're going to cover that, and the general key takeaways in general, how to run the show in a smooth and safe manner. So let's say you get contacted by a client who would like you to run a drone show at their venue. The first thing we need to do is scout out that venue. We need to travel to that place, bring some minimal equipment, our ground station, which is the computer with DSS, our Wi-Fi router that communicates with the drones, and the RTK base station for precise GNSS, a few drones as well. And we take all that equipment there, and we set up this minimal station. And the thing we do the most on that day is look around, because there are many things that once we look at a place from a map, for example, Google Maps, Google Earth, whichever you use, Bing Maps, anything works. But still, looking at that venue from a satellite image's point of view still will make us miss things that can be quite obvious on the ground. So you always need to ground truth or observations. For example, in traveling to that venue, we could see that, oh, there is an electric substation very close, and that's giving us interference. So perhaps you might have to not go to that venue altogether. You might have to seek out an alternative, or or if you have to make do with that venue, you might choose to go to the opposite side of that source of interference. And even things that are not very obvious, you don't need to have a power line going over that venue for there to be interference. Sometimes, if you're too close to a structure that has, for example, a web server in it, that's enough magnetic interference to ruin your day and not let your drones get a good GNSS fix. About checking the number of satellites, that's quite predictable because satellite routes are predictable. There are several open web tools that will allow you to get a precise prediction of how many satellites will be in the area if you give it coordinates, a date, and a time. If you're interested in some specific recommendations, we can give them to you. Just ask in the Q&A. You need at least 13, as we'll cover later, for the drones to get a good fix and be able to fly. The more the better, of course, but 13 is a hard minimum. And as soon as you've traveled with drones, you have exposed them to some interference. Even if they're off, their compasses will decalibrate a bit. So when you reach the venue where they're supposed to fly, you calibrate their compasses. It's quite a simple operation. DSS runs you through how to do that, and it becomes second nature once you gain some experience. If you don't have any draft of the animation yet, only a concept, looking at the venue is also very important, so you can get an idea of the distances, of the topography, of what it feels like, of what the night sky looks like in that region, and so on. So it will give you very important input to fine-tune that animation or begin it from scratch if you only have a concept. With Drone Show Creator, you can actually set the coordinates of the venue and animate from there. Even though the animations themselves are portable, you can use your animation theoretically anywhere. The reality is that most animations are crafted with a specific venue in mind. As you go through that process, there can be several iterations. There can be several such visits. At least one is very important. You can fine-tune your animation and also get a better idea of where to set the geofences for show safety, meaning the areas the drones cannot cross without fail-safing, which is something we'll cover very briefly. So the show area includes many sub-areas. The takeoff and landing zone, I see a question that asks about it, is where your drones will be set on the ground. The area will be cordoned off, only the drones will be there, and that's the area the drones take off from. They dance, and then they go back and land in the exact point where they took off from. That's the most central area, let's say, of the dance. Around that is where they fly. It's usually a wider area because the animations take space. And then there are two levels of geofence we work with in our suit. There's the normal fence called the soft fence. You can use those interchangeably here in orange, and the hard fence. The difference between these fences is, well, first of all, in a normal set of conditions, a drone will not cross them at all. But if anything happens, there are two layers of safety here. With a normal fence, you can configure your drones either to land in place. If they happen to cross it, then they'll just land wherever they crossed it, or return home. Depending on your show, one may be better than the other, but usually landing in place is safer because if you order a drone to return home, it might crash into another. And the hard fence, after which, if a drone for any reason crosses that, it will simply turn off its propellers and free fall. Again, the principle here is, first of all, we are looking to protect life, so any humans and animals are our main priority in keeping safe. Second, We want to preserve property. We don't want to damage the venue or anything in it. And third, we want to protect our fleet. We don't want any drones to be damaged, any of our ground infrastructure to be damaged either. But if we have to choose, we'll choose life first, property second, and fleet third, usually. Um, Somewhere within this area, our operators, our ground infrastructure, which is usually a long table with two computers, some are monitors, and at least two pilots sitting there at all times. You can have more crew members walking around, but that area also has to be planned into your general plan of the venue. And outside the hard fence, with an added buffer of safety, there's the restricted, cordoned off area which no member of the public is meant to enter. So that's even beyond the fence. So there is absolutely no chance a drone could even get close to that person. And finally, the guest area where they are supposed to be. Um, Sometimes these areas are quite loose. There's only a cordoning off where the public shouldn't enter. Sometimes in some events, there is, for example, a tribune and all the members of the public are in one place. That varies with venue, that varies with the profile of the event. There are a lot of factors, but the principles remain the same. Uh, I've told you in abstract terms how this works, but more concretely, a very common question is how far do the drones have to be from the from any person really, but mostly from the public. Usually, we teach the 1-to-1 rule. We look at the highest altitude above ground level that any drone in that animation will be at. For let's say, for the sake of example, the highest point is 100 meters off the ground. Then we take this 100 meters, look at the flight area, the edges of the flight area, not the center of the dance, but the edges, and then give a 100-meter buffer to the soft fence. Why 1-to-1? If you're familiar with free falling from even physics 101, we are taught that as soon as an object starts free falling, let's say it's 100 meters from the ground, also the maximum horizontal distance it can cover if it was launched at 45 degrees, if you remember that, is the same 100 meters. That is the most an object can go along the x-axis as it falls down the z-axis. So the parabola is the principle for this rule. Some people just memorize the rules. Some like to know why, and this is why in simple terms. After that, after scouting out the venue and planning out its areas, eventually we will make an animation that is a strong candidate for being the final one. And then is the time to bring all our fleet to the venue and make a full rehearsal. Those can be several. You need to do at least one full cycle to be completely cleared for running the show responsibly. And the steps of the rehearsal are as follows. First, you set up everything as it would be on show night. And then before you ever run the dance, we need to check the integrity of the drones, whether they're flying correctly. A simpler way than running the whole dance is to perform an arm and takeoff test. Arming simply means turning the motors on, so you hear the buzzing from the motors and the props. And if you know your fleet, you will also know what it sounds like. That's the moment if you hear any strange sound, anything that's more intense or less intense than it should, or some strange noise, which could mean something inside the motors. That's when you start looking for drones that may be not up to speed and not airworthy. And the takeoff test is basically a separate command in which you give it a height, and it will just take off in a controlled manner and hover on that point. If it starts wobbling around more than it should, if it's not holding its position accurately, it may have this calibrated compass. In that case, you land it and set it apart for calibration. Or it may be having trouble receiving GNSS navigation corrections. In that case, it could be a problem. It could be a problem in that single drone or a few drones, if only those drones are experiencing that. But if all drones are not keeping their position, then you should recheck your RTK station, which is what gives the drones navigation corrections and ensures precise flight. And that's a mandatory part of ground infrastructure in our system. On that same night, you should be able to solve all those issues on the field. So repeat this test until all drones hover properly during takeoff. Sometimes you may even swap drones with other drones you have in reserve. We recommend having a reserve of 5 to 10%, depending on your budget, over the drones you have as your regular fleet. So if you're running fleets with 100 drones, you may have 105, 110, if you can afford that. That's always very important to solve such issues as they come and make sure your animation has all the drones and no holes in it. Once all drones are calibrated, we can look at the extreme paths in our animation. Remember, once we export an animation, it exports to so-called path files. So each drone has an individual path from that animation. And we can look at those paths beforehand, for example, using Path Viewer, which is one of the tools in DSS, and see which path contains the highest point, which one contains the lowest point, and which one contains the points further away that define the whole area where the dance takes place. And we can fly only those to see if the extremes are correct, if all distances are respected, if we're not cutting it too close at the venue, and so on. Because if we find that some adjustments need to be made, we can we still have time to adjust the animation. Sometimes just scaling it down a little bit. And finally, once you feel confident that, for example, the extreme points are okay, now we can fly the full animation. In that case, this would be exactly the same as show night, perhaps minus the pressure of having the public and your client. But it's very important that you take it with the same seriousness as show night. So don't cut corners, don't skip steps. Go through the checklist as meticulously as you would on show night. And if everything has gone correctly, congratulate yourselves and be ready for show night in high spirits. Speaking of show night, this is usually how it plays out, as follows. On show night, usually you will arrive perhaps you may be there even in the morning. Perhaps you can cut it closer, be there in the afternoon, but set off enough hours to do everything calmly. And at this point, do everything as you did in rehearsal. Perform those checks way usually like a shift before show night. If your show is at 8 p.m., be ready to do that at perhaps 4 p.m. is already cutting it close. Do it at 2, for example. It's very important to keep the venue secured. I call it sometimes crowd control. It may be a bit extreme, but make sure that all spectators are where they're supposed to be. No one that is too curious is getting too close to your drones or to your pilots, because we don't want anyone who is not involved in operations to be within the area set off for operators only. Keep checking the wind speed and the weather forecast for your area at all times. Monitor that the whole day. Even during the flight, you'll make a decision to fly or not to fly usually half an hour to 15 minutes prior to the scheduled time. If weather conditions change and your pilot, your main pilot says it's a no-go, it's a very tough call to make, but still we have to respect that because our main priority is for everything to be safe. And given drone shows are entertainment, we can all wait for another day, another beautiful and unwindy night to run that show. If on the first night conditions change and the pilot finds it better not to fly. Safety first, impressiveness a close second. Remember to have full batteries. Battery management is quite a large aspect of successful crew management and equipment management. Oftentimes, many operators have a person or several that are dedicated to that, uh, that do know how to properly warehouse your batteries when they're not in use and distribute them to the drones when they are meant to be flown. Basically, be psychologically ready to make tough calls. Deciding not to fly after so much expectation is built up that the drone show is going to happen may be very heavy on everyone involved, but sometimes it's the most responsible thing to do. Now a little bit about what happens on the background that certainly the public doesn't see is we need to have our drones well maintained. We've covered a little bit of looking at the propellers, looking at the batteries, but also other aspects of the drone are important. Its flight controller, its communication chips, its GNSS receiver, which could be the case if one drone doesn't get a fix repeatedly. We could look that after in our warehouse, in our in our workshop. And the best way to start any troubleshooting is to look at the manufacturer's instructions. All drone manufacturers have a maintenance uh, a maintenance sheet or several sets of documentation. If you are a DIY developer, you're making your own platform. That's also possible and often done in our industry. Then we strongly recommend you create your own standard set of maintenance and troubleshooting documentation based on industry best practices. So don't just wing it. Have procedures, have processes in place. Many operators also keep a separate maintenance log for each drone. Because remember, we are doing aviation. Each drone is an aircraft and deserves the respect and attention given to aircraft. A little bit deeper on batteries. One common mistake is to charge batteries fully for storage. That will make them wear out much faster. Most battery chargers allow you to discharge them, or if they're overcharged, or charge them up if they're completely discharged, to uh, an intermediate voltage that is meant for storage. Each battery will have its own recommended values. It's usually on the body of the battery somewhere, or if it's not on the body of the battery, probably the manufacturer also has a data sheet with all those values, and you can set them on chargers. After your batteries are older than 1 year old, you should expect them to have lower performance. So if you plan on keeping using them, do make a test of whether total flight time of your drone with that battery remains the same. Expect it to be lower. You can make some animations that are benchmarks, make it fly around, make it hover for what's the expected amount, and see how the battery reacts. But remember, batteries in this line of work, they are the main consumables. They are the main supplies that you will be buying in bulk and throwing away periodically and replacing periodically. They don't have an infinite shelf life. Indeed, their shelf life is predictably quite low, a matter of a year, pushing it a little bit more. Discarding them is not as simple as just throwing them in any trash. Each country has its own system, but usually batteries are treated as chemical waste and recycled. So make sure to make those arrangements as appropriate to your own jurisdiction. That's important for the environment, and that's important also to keep battery production going, because many of these are recycled at least partially. Charge and discharge under supervision. Here, mostly we mean don't just plug all your batteries to charge overnight. Have someone looking over that room, because things could happen, short circuits, a leak, anything, and it could become very dangerous very fast. So just don't leave them unsupervised whilst charging. And if you're operating in cold weather, remember batteries just discharge more quickly, and they pull up more power and the drone pulls up more power to remain operational. So expect shorter flight time and plan accordingly for your show. On the propulsion system, the propulsion system contains the motor, which is this part that gives torque to the propellers, and the propellers are this aerodynamic wing part that actually create the forces, the lift, and all the other forces that allow the drone to fly and move around in the air. What you're looking for in a quick inspection is that there are no cracks, no chips, no caked sand, dust, nothing. The propellers, the wings themselves here, should look clean and tidy, and also they should be either screwed or bolted in a tight way. There should be no looseness between that would allow it to wobble this way, but also not too tight that it would compromise its movement. Within the motors, usually they're a little bit exposed at the top, if you can see. Check if there's anything, give it a little spin with your fingers, see if there's any resistance that shouldn't be there, any sort of dirt within there that could have gotten inside from flying in sandy or dusty conditions. You can use a small compressed air pistol. Don't make it too strong, because the components are fragile, and clean the insides of the motors and rid them from any external bodies. One very important thing that we highlight a lot in our full training is team management. So having an educated team from the outset means, as your team gets experience, they will get experience in the right things, and your show will be safe, and flying will be smooth. So we work with many acronyms in this industry. So if you're not familiar with RPIC, that means Remote Pilot in Command. That is the person who is running DSS, the main suit, the main control program, and has final authority on running or stopping the show. If the remote pilot in chief or in command makes the call that the show should be canceled, we should listen to them. They are usually the most experienced pilot. There's a co-pilot who is just as well prepared and qualified as the remote pilot in chief, who is sitting besides the pilot in chief and monitors red button. That's our secondary program that allows us to issue emergency commands over radio. Whereas DSS works with Wi-Fi, the red button uses radio. So there are two completely different principles of communication. This redundancy renders robustness to the system and allows us to keep in contact with the drones with much more probability than if we had just one channel. Additional flight crew members would be field observers, people who are looking at your show from different angles and usually have a walkie-talkie to communicate with the pilots if anything seems off. And again, those drone and battery handlers that actually place the drones on the ground in a precise grid, make battery changes, and handle the batteries in the warehouse. and also the drones on the field. Always remember, this is the most core principle here. Everything that we do here is aviation. Non-crewed aviation is also aviation and is under aviation law. We must treat it with the same seriousness as if we had pilots within the aircraft. So training for all crew members is absolutely mandatory. Uh, the moment a drone is off the ground, we are under aviation law, and any consequences of damage to life or property are taken very, very seriously. So here is a sort of a checklist of what we should look for in our environment, in the environment around us, for a drone show to be successful. As we mentioned before, the minimum amount of navigation satellites that should be over our area is 13. Underneath 13, and the drone won't get a fix, and it won't be able to fly in this mode. We should have no radio frequency interference because one of our channels is radio, so we need to make sure that that channel is clear. There are a few devices you can bring, such as the radio frequency explorer, that actually allow you to measure in real time if there's any interference over the channels or the frequencies you'll be using, mostly for 133 and 900 megahertz. Make sure there's no external magnetic interference that would primarily be felt by the drone's compasses. So if one way to check that is we put the drone on the ground and we know which way it's looking at, which in more technical terms is its heading or azimuth, and that heading or azimuth has to match what DSS reports. So what we see on the ground, the real physical direction of the drone, has to match the logical direction as it reports to us in the software. Otherwise, either the drone's compass needs calibration, which you can do on the field, or there is some unaddressed source of interference. There should be no precipitation. Most drones are not made for any rain or snow to be falling on them as they operate. Every flight must be recorded by several cameras. Sometimes many operators also take off with a manually controlled drone. Any drone with a camera usually is good enough for the job. Also from cameras on the ground from several perspectives. That's important not only for the appeal value in that, because you'll be getting very nice footage from your show and you can edit it into very nice videos, but also for troubleshooting. If anything goes wrong, you will have not only the logs from DSS that tell part of the story, but also the direct visual evidence that even us as engineers that are providing support to you will find very, very useful to get to the bottom of any problem. AC power on site. So your ground station, which comprises computers, a Wi-Fi switch, and several access points deployed on the field, and also the RTK station, they need to be powered by AC. So either you pull an extender from the grid, or you can have a generator, but don't rely on batteries. Don't rely on the assumption that batteries will hold for the duration of the show. Labor protection. Your pilots will be under a lot of mental stress, so we want to ease their physical stress. We need to make them physically as comfortable as possible, so that the only thing they need to worry is to observe the drones, observe DSS, make any important decisions regarding our show, and not the fact that they are hot, they are thirsty, they are hungry, or visibility is bad. So give them proper personal protection equipment. Usually, in sunny conditions, the ground station will be covered by a tent, one that does not enclose visibility where it should, but protects them from most of solar exposure. Comfortable working conditions, don't underestimate that either. Give them good chairs, they'll be sitting for very long. Good tables because they have to have their fingers ready on emergency commands to react quickly. So and for a long time as well. And give the visual observers who are deployed all along the field hard hats. In the very unfortunate possibility that a drone could fall, the hard hat would protect them from very serious injury. So no one who is inside the operations area should be without personal protective equipment. Also, reflectors are important because we're working at night and we want to see our crew members. About wind, our general recommendations are that if baseline wind is up to and including 5 meters per second, you can fly, that's safe. Between 5 and 6, it depends on how that situation is expected to develop, but be cautious. It's not a hard no, but it's not a hard yes either. But over 6 meters per second, do not fly. That also includes wind gusts are also considered. Those have a bit of a higher value, but if those gusts are becoming too frequent and getting close to becoming baseline wind, also don't take unnecessary risks. The best way to measure wind speed is to have an anemometer, which is a wind measuring device on site. That is the most real wind you will get. The next best thing is to rely on the closest meteorological station, which is something DSS allows you to do. There is the weather service that picks your dense center, finds the closest source of real weather data. It's usually an airport, but it doesn't have to be one, and parses out that information in real time for you on DSS itself. But always the best data is direct local data. And bear in mind the most important thing, the wind we experience on ourselves at ground level is usually lower than the wind a drone will experience 50, 70, 100 meters up. That is the case because the closest we are to the surface of the Earth, the more friction there is, so the wind gets braked. Not so the higher you go. The higher you go, the windier it gets. There are ways to estimate with height how much the wind is stronger, and usually those are what we rely upon because we can't launch our anemometer 5 meters in the air unless it's mounted on a drone, and most operators don't have the resources or know how to do that. So always expect that the wind you get on your weather app, these 5 to 6 meters per second, that is on ground level, and at higher levels it will be faster. And each drone manufacturer has a wind resistance rating for their drones. So check that, inquire with them. That's usually a documented piece of data that's listed in the data sheet of the drone. Just the fact that the drones are able to resist that wind doesn't mean they will fly properly if that wind is there. So a drone may be able to fly, but it won't be able to make the dance, and the dance will be distorted. So the best is always to wait for good conditions. On GNSS interference, which includes jamming and spoofing, that's a very hot topic. That's often making the rounds in the news. But many people use those terms interchangeably, not knowing what each of them means. So here, we're using this opportunity to teach you the difference. Jamming means whatever navigational data the drone was receiving properly, now it's receiving basically what amounts to noise. It's receiving junk data that's not well formed. It's completely confused if we were to treat it as a person. So the symptom is that it flies in any direction, It looks like complete chaos, and it may be due to completely innocent causes, some interference or bad satellite coverage in that area, sometimes a rogue cloud, sometimes an airplane, things we truly can't control, and that there is no guilty party to it, or caused by a bad agent with a jammer. So that can't be ruled out either. And spoofing is feeding not noise data, not trash data, but well-formed data, but purposefully wrong. Let's say we are flying in New York, and some bad agent feeds into our drones that they're supposed to be in Los Angeles. So they'll all fly in a concerted manner in the wrong direction. They will all try to make it to LA suddenly. They will hit the fence and they will fail safe or disarm. So it looks very different, spoofing from jamming. And currently, at least at the commercial consumer level that we work with, there are no real technical ways to shield our fleet from that. So if it's a proverbial arms race, attack is winning over defense, but that may change. There is research being done in how to prevent jammers and spoofers from reaching our drones. So our defense is legal. We begin with the fact that this is a serious aviation law violation in any and all jurisdictions. It's usually pretty much a military grade act. You usually wouldn't find just some random person in possession of a GNSS jammer or spoofer. Even the handheld ones are usually military grade weapons and are not simply distributed right and left. But if it happens, it may happen. It has happened. There is no reason to lie about it. The way operators protect themselves is with good insurance. So ensuring the case that your fleet gets disrupted with GNSS interference, purposeful or accidental or environmental, good contract design with your client of what to do in such cases, and venue security. Let's say we have a bad agent with a jammer who got it from wherever. If we never let that person close to our drones, they won't be able to jam them. In the case of handheld devices that need line of sight. Now, if you're near a military base, for example, and that jamming is just a normal part of their base defense, in that case, the right thing to do would be beforehand to contact that military base and explain, okay, we have this drone show at such and such location. How does this fit into your jamming capabilities? And oftentimes you get an authorization and they accommodate your event. So the main takeaways here are to always have both channels, two pilots. One pilot is in charge of everything and runs DSS directly. The second pilot is monitoring Red Button, which is our emergency command interface, which runs on radio. And they are always cross-checking each other. Don't let ego get in the way. It's very healthy to cross-check your partner and allow yourself to be cross-checked by them, because sometimes we get tunnel vision, especially when some issue happens and we have to address it. And two minds working freely work much better than one. We can also solve the tunnel vision in a partner and make them look at the issue a little bit from a more open perspective. Never plan your flight path in such a way that it could fly over uninvolved people, mostly members of the public, or anyone who, in more open events that might even venture into your area not knowing there's a drone show, and they would be just taking what is usually their route home or to work and would walk under your drones. Don't let that happen. Secure your venue properly with good cordons, good security, good communication as well. And always use both sides of the fence, set them both levels of the fence, soft and hard, and design them in such a way that it makes that it matches how you would secure your venue and not let external people in. Monitor the weather forecast. Remember, weather can change. Remember, the weather you see is more important than the weather in the model you see on a website. Make real decisions based on real observations. Use the model as a reference. Make the main call fly or no fly just before the flight, but also monitor changing conditions during the flight. So thank you for listening. Now I'm giving the word back to my good mentor and colleague Arturs. He's going to cover technical aspects, more related directly to the technology. So I'll be taking your questions now, as he was when I was speaking.
Thank you, Germano, for the very detailed explanation of the operational aspects. Yeah, I will be talking more into the technical stuff, more into the technology behind this. So let's get started. So yeah, first of all, we position ourselves as a safety-centered solution for drone shows. We have a very, very detailed and several layers of safety built into the software. Let's talk about some of them. So we have a summary that summarizes all the pre-flight aspects in one window. So you don't need to switch to different windows or menus to check for all the small details that should be checked before every flight. You have one window that shows you just simple green or red if some of the subsystems are ready or not, and you can dial in, you can check into the depth, what lies beneath it to investigate why any of the systems are not ready. Not only that, but each of our drones does constantly check its own health. So we have more than 70 health-related metrics being checked by the drones throughout the flight and before the flight. In case something goes wrong, the drone immediately informs the operators over the DSS interface that there is a health-related situation, and we have also different levels of severeness for these alerts. We also have developed a very new way of launching shows called Quick Start. With this, it's possible to reduce the steps necessary from the operators to execute the show, as well as maintaining the same level of precision and safety as with the more steps we used to do. But no, most of them are automated and checked and reviewed for the user by using the quick start. And as well as built-in weather, like Germano mentioned, we have both Meta live data as well as weather forecast within the software. We have, since the latest DSS version, a new additional failsafe or fence layer built into the drones themselves. So in case that a drone would deviate from its designated flight trajectory by a specified amount, let's say 5 or 10 meters, the fence can be triggered even before reaching the geofence that you marked on the map. So thereby, we minimize the chances of a drone to even leave its designated flight area before even it gets far away from its position. So this way, the fence can be triggered much sooner than allowing the drone to travel up to the borders of the designated geofence. But the geofence still remains intact. So if for some reason the path deviation fence is not triggered, we still have both the soft and the hard geofence layers. Take a look at the quick start that I already mentioned, and let's mention some of the features that maybe elevates the safety when using this form of show launch. So with the help of Quick Start, it is possible to start from any shape on the ground, meaning that the drones no longer have to be positioned in perfect grid. They can be positioned in a random formation, thereby reducing the time needed for the crew to set the ground formation. The drones can be put even 1 by 1 meter apart, as long as the propellers don't touch. And a quick start will generate safe landing and takeoff trajectories for any type of formation on the ground. It is also not necessary to do small adjustments with the show location to match the starting grid. This is also done by the quick start automatically, as well as selecting the most healthy drones. So by using quick start, you can put out slightly more drones than necessary, and quick start would, based on the alert system that each drone has, select the safest and healthiest drones for a particular show. So again, no need to worry about swapping drones. Quick start will do that for you, thereby maximizing the uh, execution of a perfect show. And as well, there's only 2 clicks needed to start the show. So first, to set the start of the show. Second, to confirm it. And that's it. Only 2 steps are required for the operator. But like I said, at the same time, the safety of execution is still maintained. Just we are potentially limiting human errors by use of the new tool. Additional to that, even when designing as the first step of every show, we have built-in tools in the drone show creator that automatically check our speeds in the design as well as distances. So we have a real-time information about this when designing each step of the show. This is highlighted, as you see in some of the screenshots, with red. So if there's a too fast or a too close drone, that is immediately notified to the designer. Since pyrotechnics are becoming higher or more popular part of drone shows, and integration with pyrotechnics is becoming more common, our firmware does also integrate fully with the pyrotechnical support on the drones, meaning that the drones supported by our pyro system do not rely on external communication to trigger the pyro. This allows us to do much more in regards to safety than if the trigger would come from a ground element or ground trigger. With the use of built-in triggers, we can ensure that a drone has reached minimum safe altitude before the pyro trigger is triggered, as well as if the drone has again a health alert or health condition that is not safe to shoot a pyro, the drone itself will know that and prevent the pyro from triggering. This way, again, we don't need to rely to externally disable a pyro trigger. The drone itself will know it. But at the same time, we may have another layer of safety, so another external like a safety mechanism that we can trigger even on top of that. And the additional benefit of using a built-in system in the drone is that it directly allows for synchronization with the lights as well as any external devices by using timecode. Okay, guys, this has been the presentation about safety from our side. There's been a lot of different and interesting questions. So, yeah, most of the questions I see have been answered in the Q&A section. But yeah, I remember there was one question actually that I would like to return to, and I know many of you may be facing this question on a regular basis, which is how to calculate the safe distance from the show to the audience. And yeah, I would say this is always been a balance, to be honest. You always need to balance your venue, your available space with the safety requirements. And as Germano mentioned, the typical rule of thumb or a rule by which the minimum distance from the shore is calculated still is this one-to-one rule. So whichever country or jurisdiction you are operating from, this is usually the main rule of thumb. But at the same time, we are pushing the safety ahead by applying new layers of fences, and we're currently developing another new fence layer. So we hope that in the near future, we'll be able to confidently say that by applying new types of fence within the drone, so within the drone logic, we can decrease the necessary buffers or distances from the show to audience, because we do also understand that not always this is a viable option to have these, I don't know, 100 meters or 400 feet from the show to the audience. And sometimes you just need to decrease the altitude of the show. Or hopefully in the near future, you will be able to more rely on um, additional safety mechanisms within the drone to safely say that this buffer zone can be reduced. What other questions I could briefly discuss? Germano, do you have some?
I am mostly answering them directly as text.
Mm-hmm.
And there is one from Preston for path-based deviation. Does it
Yeah,
trigger land or
yeah,
disarm?
yeah. Thank you, Preston, for the question. Yeah, so currently we find that the safest option for this is to disarm. At the same time, it is configurable. So yeah, again, the default action right now is going to be disarm. Yeah, as Germano mentioned, we always also want to balance the our equipment with the safety of attendees. So therefore, in this case, we prioritize the safety of for attendees by disarming the drones. But it's not excluded that we may change our opinion and say at some point that also using a landing or fast landing when crossing this path deviation may be also applicable.
Another question from Steve. What kinds of failures have you seen in real-world drone shows? And how have you fixed them or prevented them from happening? Also,
Uh,
how do you handle GPS jamming?
yeah, so GPS jamming, yeah, um, maybe in the future we will have a solution. We are actually working in this direction. So maybe in the future we will have a way to, say that yes, we found the solution to GPS jamming, and but not today, unfortunately. Uh, Other than that, yeah, as I
Arthur,
mentioned, yeah, yeah,
for interrupting. Yeah, today our standard behavior is to stop the show. If you have any GPS jamming or spoofing, the only way to continue is to stop the show.
yeah, sure. So yeah, honestly I didn't have the time to read through the whole question. But what I wanted also to mention that uh, we do find that sometimes maybe automatic some of the steps when executing the show, or even dividing the responsibilities between uh, different crew members. So let's say one is the planning member, one is the executing member, one is the pilot. So this way, or even automating some of the steps, we can minimize potential human errors, which actually many times are the causes for the most loud or problems that you see online in the videos. I think that in most cases the actual cause is human error, and yeah, and in those cases, I think still can be prevented by improving the technology and by improving the um, tools that we use for running the show. So we do appreciate all the feedback we're getting from our customers, and we also try to implement as much as we can. Again, prioritizing safety when choosing which features to implement.
Okay, and the last question, I believe, from Charbel. In case mid-show, some drones might go off and end of screen. Usually they keep on doing the animation. What are the risks of a drone flying and not showing on DSS?
If we lose the primary communication channel, as Germano mentioned, we do have a secondary communications channel. And to ensure or minimize these risks, like we mentioned, it's best to do a rehearsal. And so when doing the rehearsal, you can observe the communication channels and thereby minimizing the chances that this will occur during the show itself. But at the same time, if a small percentage of the drones disconnect from your primary channel, you usually have your secondary channel working well if it's not an extreme case, because the working distance of our secondary channel communications is usually much, much further and the reception much better than the primary communications, which means that, you know, when the primary is lost, you don't see the feedback from the drone, you don't see where it is positioned. But in most cases, you can rely that the secondary will cover this if it's operational and you know, there's no technical problem with the secondary communications channel in general.
Another question from Steve about failures that we have seen. I would say mostly it was unprepared shows, I would say, or operator mistakes.
Keeping with the process, you know, following the process, however tedious, however boring the checklist, however you know, tired you are, you must you know, work to avoid a situation where you're saying, okay, I've done this like hundreds of times. I might as well, you know, skip on this. You know, 100 times nothing happened, or I am too tired to do this.
The
No.
101st time ruins your career.
Yeah, so that's why, as mentioned in the presentation, always cross-check each other. So have someone else, like if one of you is tired, have someone else, you know, try to help you just to keep you awake, or you know, entertain you, or help you with the checklist, or help you with the preparation. So therefore, we always recommend to have two educated pilots, so that if one of the pilots is not following the protocol, or maybe skipping something, the other pilot can join in and do that. So that's how the responsibility is divided. And you know, on the planes, you know, on the actual planes, you also have two pilots, you know. So this is just the same situation. And you know, we want to make drone shows as safe as air transport. So that's why we do always emphasize that you want to have two people on the location that understand what they're doing and what has to be done to execute the show safely.
Okay, another question from Steve. If you have to cancel mid-show, what happens to the drones? How do they land? In case of GPS jamming and in the case of
Yeah.
airplane. Okay, I won't be reading.
So yeah, actually, those are two different situations. If let's say a plane is coming in, we do have a smart return to home, where we return all the return safely to their takeoff locations. So we stop the show and we send them return back. So this takes maybe like a 30 seconds or so on average. Of course, it's not if it's not too far away. So that's for the plane. As for the jamming, yeah, as Alexei also mentioned, in this case, it's time to stop the show, and we'll send a fast land or disarm command. So fast land would make the drones land as fast as possible, but the disarm would just make them fall down. So from a safety perspective, if they fall, it's bad for the business, but you still minimize the chance of a drone flying outside of the operational area because the drones don't understand where they are in case of jamming. But with the fast landing, you sort of save the drone, but increase the risk that some of the drones may have already left the operational area because they don't, again, understand where they are because their primary information about position comes from the GPS. In case if that's jammed, then basically the drone is blind, doesn't know where it is.
Okay, Winston is worried. Can someone hack into the software or drones?
Okay. Now, yeah. So, so
I mean,
far,
there is
oh,
easier way, just to use jammers or spoofers.
yeah, everything is encrypted. So we have a um, strong enough encryption pools for the communication channels. And if you are offline, if your since the show doesn't require internet access, I think it will be very, very hard to somehow access the software from the outside. So I think we're safe on that.
Question from Kevin about drone calibration. Do you always have to do this?
Actually, no, not always. Therefore, we do like this rehearsal. So during the rehearsal, you can observe how the drones are doing on this particular location. I would say that in most cases, you don't need to calibrate. Again, if you're traveling far enough, then it may be necessary. But it's not that you absolutely must calibrate on every occasion. I think it's case by case, and by following your correct procedures, your correct checklist or procedures, you can decide if it's necessary to calibrate or not. But definitely, it's not that you must calibrate every time. No, you don't.
Okay, question from Brian from Colombia. How can I send 3 or 4 drones for a test from Kickstart for altitude and communication testing with the primary and secondary channels?
Okay, yeah, good question on the quick start. Yeah. Actually, we have for quick start we have a plan to do this, but same time you can select from the path you can identify the path that you want to use for this test, and you can use just this path for the quick start. So by using path viewer, you identify these paths, then you can particularly select them and just use those from within the quick start. So you don't need to always follow the full show with the quick start. You can also fly up some of the paths from the show with quick start.
Okay, it seems we're done. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for joining, everyone. Thank you for the attention. And I think it was a very, very interesting questions and answers, definitely. Yeah, very, very good questions this time.
Very, very interested public. Lots of questions.
Yeah,
That's always nice.
so it gives us confidence to follow this direction and make another webinar on this topic in the future.
Remember, safety first. Safety is stylish. Safety will take you far.